This is a manatee in a fish tank that's barely 3 body lengths. There's another one right here.
You all hear the cheesy music of this video? Like you hear music right now?
Wow. This doesn't make sense.
This is a manatee.
In order to monitor naive and high-risk manatees, a buoy tracking device is fitted before release. The information transmitted allows biologists to follow the migration and dive patterns of individual animals for up to several months after their reintroduction.
I'm gonna go to wide angle just so you can get a feel for the actual full size of this tank.
All right. You can hear the clown music? Good. Just for those who are listening on podcast right now, we're watching my video from Miami Seaquarium. This is Romeo the manatee. I think he's 67 years old. I think this is the same manatee. Listen to this.
How old are these guys?
I'm asking the guy there.
Underneath, he's about 20 years old, and then the one up on top is about 65.
65 years old.
5 years old.
Yeah.
How long have they been here for?
They've been here since 1950.
1950,
1958.
1958.
1958. In this size tank?
I believe so.
Manatees belong to the order Sirenia, which comes from the Greek mythology.
This was my video documenting. I went to the Miami Seaquarium for a Phil Demaris Walrus Whisperer protest,
Said to have lured ships onto rocks with their mesmerizing
but
I mean, that's possibly one of the worst things I've ever seen in any zoo.
this was my document.
Since 1958. Got here. And it seems that that's it. That's their existence.
That's
Those
their
two soup
existence.
holes, and there's a little door that they can go from one to the next.
True story, those sunglasses are now at the bottom of the ocean. I'm fairly certain, I mean, that is the Romeo. There were 2 manatees at the Miami Seaquarium. I went down because the Walrus Whisperer, Phil Demaris, was organizing a protest. I was not yet blocked by Miami Seaquarium on Twitter, and I went down to document the protest, and then Phil said, ordinarily I don't tell anybody to give money to Miami Seaquarium, but go in there and look at it. I had never been there before. I tend to like zoos and aquariums to the extent they don't have higher order animals that look miserable. I remember going to the, I want to say the Bronx Zoo. It was definitely in New York. And we were there with my kids. There were animals in there. They looked so bloody depressed. There was a zebra, not a zebra, the one with the neck, the giraffe. In an enclosure, I mean, it's the size of a big classroom. The backdrop was a palm tree savanna painted on a brick wall. And I'm like, this is miserable. We were at another zoo, I forget where. There was a bear that looked so depressed, I kept the kids out of the enclosure. Preservation, fine. You know, helping injured animals that can't be released to the wild, fine. But we know what goes on when you start to market animals in captivity. Oh, there was an animal that was injured. It can't go back to the wild. How did it get injured? Don't ask. I got blocked by Miami Seaquarium shortly after making that video. Phil Demaris, who, stay tuned, will be doing another, I think, in-person interview because he's coming down to Florida for another event, sent me an article in the Daily Mail. Let me see where I'm going to pull this article up here. And let me see this here. Where is it? Oh, for goodness sake. He sent me an article that was in the Daily Mail about Romeo at the Miami Seaquarium in captivity. And I had to post it, but I had to show my documentary. Let me pull it up because it's worth viewing. It's atrocious. Here, let's bring this one up here and bring it up incognito. And he's raising awareness about, apparently Romeo has now been taken out of public display or something along those lines. And the animal's name is Romeo. A 67-year-old manatee living the most depressing existence imaginable. I went to see it. It's got 2, they're not even big swimming pools that it lives in, and there's like lettuce floating around. The loneliest manatee, heartbreaking, isolated existence of 67-year-old Romeo, who is living out of his twilight years alone in a tiny 30-foot concrete pool in an off-limits part of the Miami Seaquarium. well, I guess too many people were complaining about seeing a depressed higher order mammal swimming around in soup for 1958 people. So stay tuned for news on this, because Phil Damaris is putting Miami Seaquarium on blast, and I guess to some extent so am I, but they blocked me on Twitter after that documenting the existence of those animals. And like, there are considerations with, predatory animals that you can't release an orca just like that into the wild if it doesn't have a pod, if it's forgotten how to hunt. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not a doctor. And heck, I don't even give legal advice. But I don't know what would be required in order to release a sea cow back into the ocean. Manatees, for those of you who don't know, they're called sea cows because they're big, fat, not stupid animals, very intelligent animals, very social animals. They eat grass off the bottom of the ocean. And so I don't know what would be required to release a manatee into the wild. Part of me thinks an animal would rather die in the wild than die in captivity. I don't know. Maybe that's just my projecting. But I don't know what would be required to release a manatee back into the wild. I don't think much would be required. Thing's not going to forget how to eat grass off the bottom of the ocean. Maybe it won't be as aware of boats, but manatees, generally speaking, are not that aware of boats, or at least not responsive to boats. They get hit by them all the time. So that's it. Stay tuned for that. We have some other introductory stuff going on, but why was I late? It seems that YouTube has changed a configuration around ever so slightly. And I couldn't find the pinned section to put the pinned link so that when you know it's time to end on YouTube, you have the Rumble link to go to the free speech platform. So I'm sitting there like, what the heck? They changed one little bloody thing and I can't find things anymore. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that Thanksgiving week is over in America and that kids go back to school, but Thanksgiving week is over. And kids go back to school tomorrow? Oh my goodness, have we had one heck of a week. My daughter had 3 best friends come down. That's 3 extra people in the house. My other kid had his best friend come down with his mother. That's 5 extra people in our house all week. My parents came down. We went fishing. We had an amazing week. But all good things come to an end. Kids go back to school tomorrow. I get back to my daily routine. Holy crab apples. But for those of you who are not following me, there's a second, third YouTube channel called Viva Family, but on Rumble, I've got a second channel called Viva Random, just so I can post random videos of random stuff, family stuff, not law, not legal, not politics related. We went back to the Loxahatchee animal refugee, not refugee either. Refuge. It's a refuge, not refuse. It's an amazing place. Whenever we go, we see alligators. I keep telling my kids, they're going to understand this one day. Wonderful things happen when you get out of the house and get off your device. Now, I say that knowing full well that I am virtually always on my device, but I like to say that is because I need to document the world. We went down to the Loxahatchee. It's the Arthur R. Marshall Wildlife Refuge. Today, we get there, and we see what looks like an alligator with something big in its mouth. The something big in its mouth turned out to be a snapping turtle. I think it was a soft-shelled snapping turtle. It would be very ironic
at the Loxahatchee
if it was an alligator snapping turtle. And look what happens here. I had to mention that somebody had turned on alligator growls on their phone so that nobody would think that this alligator was growling throughout the entire video. But we see an alligator with a massive snapping turtle in its mouth.
Let's see this.
And then this happens.
Oh, he's getting a better grip on it.
Look at this.
Come on. Eat it.
Yes, I'm sitting there with my device recording. Look at this.
Oh, there you go.
Hello.
Oh, yes, sorry, Bob.
Take it. We just go.
My.
This is just
and
happening.
There it's in its mouth.
Right in front of us. Oh.
Holy cow.
Get in my belly. Anyways, the video's a long video, so go check it out. Oh. And so you might notice behind me a turtle shell. Hold on, actually. How stupid of me not to do this right away. You might notice a turtle shell behind me. You might notice something on that turtle shell They look like little shot glasses. Oh, here, I got an extra one here. Because they are. Wanted for president. Maureen Brown says it was a great video. Oh my God, it was just crazy. It's just amazing. I mean, if only we had seen it eat the turtle or capture it in the first place. But it took an hour for that thing to eat it's like it had to conserve its energy when eating. Must have taken all day. So there's all that to say is that you might see the turtle shell behind me. Pick that gem up at the Gem and Rock show. But you see on top of it, wanted for president. Because Christmas is just around the corner. My goodness, one of my kids' friends is talking about decorating their Christmas tree already. Got a month. If you want good Christmas gifts and you don't know what to get and you have a liberal or Democrat Biden voting, Biden supporting cousin, friend, brother, spouse, whatever, get them a wanted for president mug. Get them this shirt so that they can understand what is truly at stake. Because democracy is on the ballot, people. They've got their talking points for this election cycle. Democracy is on the ballot. We couldn't hear what Alex Vindman said. Or no, Eugene Vindman was saying in the video yesterday. For those of you who saw my testing out Rumble studio yesterday, it was good, but there's some improvements we need to make. Go get your liberal or conservative or Canadian or European friend wanted for president. The best merch on earth. And if you don't want to go with something totally political, you want to go with something slightly less than political, populism fixes everything is the response to the politics ruins everything line of merch. Every time I wear this shirt out in public, I get multiple compliments on the shirt. But speaking of politics ruining everything and holy crab apples, I'm getting fed up with Twitter because it is becoming apparent. This is not a critique. This is no shade on Elon. It's becoming apparent that there are forces at play on Twitter that are actively and overtly trying to manipulate consent, to manufacture consent, to manipulate public opinion, but also sow discord. And my firsthand experience with it, I don't like talking about the Gaza, the Palestine-Israel conflict. I don't like talking about it. There are some aspects of it which are not nuanced. There's no nuance to terrorism. There is some part of it that is a real politique. There may be no excuse for terrorism, and there's no but to that. You must nonetheless find a solution. It's too complex. It's too nuanced a discussion to have on social media. I'm listening now to Dave Smith on Rogan again. And even as I listen to Dave Smith, I now can see where even in the nuanced discussion, there's nuance within the nuance that it's an impossible discussion to have. But I came across a tweet and I could not help myself. I could not resist. And not for good reasons. Hold on. Where is it? I know I had it. Here we go. I come across this tweet from someone who I've never seen before. Why is it popping up in my feed? Well, obviously because it's a tweet that's generating engagement. It's a tweet that's generating divisiveness, that's eliciting the types of responses that's good for the algorithm on Twitter. Marie Campbell. And then I have to go to the profile. I've been conditioned or traumatized to look at the profiles now. I don't know who Marie Campbell is. See a bunch of numbers in the name. Ex-Big Five Consultancy Managing Director. I don't know what that is. Co-editor, International Relations Analyst, journalist, curator at The Curated IT. The Complicated Explained. 37,000 followers and 3,000 following. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's 10-to-1. It seems more legit. Whatever. This was the... Oh, by the way, the what do we call it? The profile pic? Now that I think about it, looks like Emily Marsh. Is it Emily Marsh? Yeah, it looks like Emily Marsh, and you'll see why that is relevant afterwards. Puts out this tweet. I'm not a facial expression expert, but judging by the look in her eyes and the expression on her face, I'd say this is a look of appreciation and thanks. Might it be that she is saying thanks for being treated unexpectedly well whilst in captivity? It's nauseating. First of all, some might say it is an oxymoron to talk about being treated unexpectedly well whilst in captivity. You might be getting treated less bad, but getting treated unexpectedly well whilst in captivity. Well, I mean, they give Romeo lettuce, so I guess Romeo should be thankful for not being, abused on a daily basis. This is the release of a hostage. I forget her name, or I didn't know her name in the first place. Who's being released, purportedly released. I think she's one of the hostages that was released. And this account is saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm no facial recognition expert. She looks like she's thankful for being treated properly, unexpectedly well, whilst in captivity." And I had to I got engaged. Mission accomplished. And I said, it's so sick it defies words. First of all, look, spoiler alert. It turns out that this account is allegedly a troll account. It was revealed sometime earlier this year, and I was not aware of it. I post what is, a sensible response to a nonsensical position. Oh my goodness, might it be possible, like the other hostage that was released a while back, where everyone's like, look at that. She goes and shakes hands with her captors. Maybe there's a little bit of admiration. Maybe they were still holding her husband. I said, maybe she's one of the hostages who's still holding her brother. Maybe she's one of the hostages, that kid who you saw in the picture, whose parents were murdered, being released today. Oh yeah, they're going to be grateful to the proper treatment, I forget what the word was now, being treated well whilst in captivity, after having been taken into captivity and having their family either murdered or kept as hostages. I reply to this and I get notified that it's a troll account. And the problem is, people are engaging with that troll account. People are engaging not knowing it's a troll. I engaged with it and said what I thought, which is, holy crap, it's not the first time that I've heard this idea. First of all, it's an iteration of Stockholm Syndrome. People don't seem to understand. Yes, captors sometimes end up feeling love or connection to those that are holding them captive. I mean, it's how people stay in abusive relationships for such extensive periods of time in the first place. I forget the name. Stockholm Syndrome was a syndrome that was created out of this kidnapping. I forget their names now, where one of the kidnapped victims ended up falling in love with their captors. One became one of the captors, became one of the terrorists or the hostage takers. Forget the details, but whatever. You can Google it yourselves. I mean, it's a phenomenon. And to suggest that because that might happen as a self-defense mechanism or as a coping mechanism, that it somehow means that they were taken captive after over 1,000 people were slaughtered, I mean, it's idiotic. But the amount of people in the comment section agreeing with it, agreeing with a troll bot, I don't know if it's a bot or a troll, whatever. It's manufacturing public sentiment while also sowing discord. And I said also, I think it's a relatively insightful observation. It's an iteration of E. Jean Carroll's rape fantasies. It's like, we've all forgotten, Trump was convicted in New York in the E. Jean Carroll case. There was that interview that E. Jean Carroll gave with Anderson Cooper, where she described rape as sexy. I think it's sexy, Chris Cooper. What was his name? Anderson Cooper. Yeah, we got to cut to break now, crazy lady. It's crazy. But first of all, some people are going to convince themselves, oh, if I get taken captive, I'm going to fall in love with my captors. It's going to be a next blockbuster Hollywood movie. And then there's also the people out there who cannot make sense of the horror of the situation and have to find a way to minimize it to themselves, to cope with it. Similar to the way certain people cope with other mass tragedies. It never happened. There's some other explanation for it, or, whatever. So that's that. Mind-blowing. But irritating. And it's like, it's becoming impossible to engage on Twitter unless you know that you are engaging with someone who you know to be a real person, because there is something bigger at play here. Hollyweird probably has a script on this already. Yep. No, it's an orchestrated campaign to rationalize, legitimize, and minimize terrorism. Some people say it's just rabid Jew hatred, but you're seeing it's not just directed at Israel. It's not just directed at Jews. It is destabilizing. There's a concerted, orchestrated effort to destabilize the world as we know it. And I made a joke that it's not just Chinese intel. It's not just liberal. I think I think Chinese and some activist organizations in America are working together. Also, long story short, I got blocked by Lindy Lee. So after my theorizing that Lindy Lee might be a Democrat Chinese working operative, which I think is definitionally true given profile pic and work experience, Lindy Lee blocked me on Twitter. All right, I see Barnes in the backdrop. What was I about to say? No medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. We are currently live on Rumble, just about to reach 10,000 viewers already. We are currently live on Locals. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. Everybody on Locals. For those feeling that I ignore the chat on Locals during the streams, I'm working it with the tools that we have. Thus far, Rumble Studio did not integrate Locals so that I could pull up the chats in real time. When it works, it's going to be glorious. But the Locals, if you feel miffed that I can't follow the chat in real time like I do with highlighting these types of super chats, we get our Locals exclusive after party show where we will take all of the tips over $5, engage there. That's the exclusive portion that we give to our community at Locals. Now, Barnes, before I bring you in 2 seconds. Caleb Crow says, I Socratically examine rather than letting it bother me. If it's a troll account, it causes them to fail getting their desired reaction. True. And then we got to Cheryl Gage. He says, go magnet fishing, score some fresh mozzarella. Can't beat that. Oh, yeah, that was a good one, too. And if we had gone magnet fishing with that gator, they were magnet fishing while on the other side, while that gator was eating and devouring a turtle. Okay, so that's it. We're going to do this. I'm going to give you all the link to Rumble because for those of you who don't know, at about 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in, we're going to end on YouTube, go over to Rumble exclusively, end the stream on Rumble, go over to the after party at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and that is it. Barnes, coming in. 3, 2, 1. Sir, how goes the battle?
Good. Looked like you had a good Thanksgiving with the fishing and everything.
We went fishing with my dad. We saw an alligator eating a turtle. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, but I'm excited. I'm gonna maybe hopefully get our bed back. That is to say, my wife and our bed back, not yours and our. Anyway, the house is gonna be quieter as of tonight. So yeah, it's good. It was fun. What did you do, Robert, if I may ask, for Thanksgiving?
My little sister and her husband made some great food, so that was fun.
Now, oh my goodness, hold on, Robert. I'm gonna ask you what the book is behind you. Then I forgot an announcement for tomorrow. Hunter Thompson. Is that Fear and Loathing?
But it's Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, his coverage of the 1972 campaign, which, as I mentioned on the Duran, has some apt references to today in terms of a lot of the politics that we're witnessing is almost like a reincarnation of the late 60s, early 70s. Some of what's happening on college campuses, some of what's happening in sort of the divide between the wokesters and moderate Jewish Democrats, that they're witnessing the blowback of what unleashing that did. Same thing in late 60s, that the anti-war movement blossomed into a terroristic movement in certain parts of the country on the left side. The embrace of the Palestinian cause as somehow, Che Guevara revolution chic became a late 60s, early 70s phenomenon as well. The sort of tracking the Soviet Union. So there's a lot of political parallels that I think it's useful. And of course, Hunter Thompson's one of the all-time great political writers. Almost nobody can write quite like Thompson can. His campaign for sheriff in Aspen is still one of the great all-time fun campaigns to follow and track. I won't do more than 2 shots of acid at a time, I think was his campaign promise. A lot of fun. And then it was fun being on the Duran last week. I think we talked about Israel for about 20 minutes, at which, of course, all the Jew haters came pouring out, and they're still shaking in anger and rage and frothing at the mouth over just about 20 minutes of rather moderate explanation for me and from Alex that Hamas probably pretty bad. Just saying, Hamas don't really want to be on the side of Hamas. That you even ask the Arabs and the rest of the Arab world about Hamas, and it's nobody likes him. They'd all like him to be gone. But people didn't like any talk about that. It all had to be Israel bashing and Jew hatred. And with my funniest part was when conservatives were telling me to, let's talk to Norman Finkelstein, just because Candace Owens had him on in her ongoing effort to get fired by the Daily Wire because she got a bad contract. Is what it appears to me. Queen Candace not happy with not enough gold being stacked up in Queen Candace's coffers. But for those people who don't know, Norman Finkelstein is an open communist. His parents were communists. They spent their whole lives defending the Soviet Union after the Stalin disclosures took place with the Khrushchev speech. I mean, this guy's a full-blown commie, and you got old school conservatives saying, you should listen to the commie, Bob. The commie understands Israel. Yeah, right. This is a guy who, if you want any idea for how bad faith he is, some people suggest we have him on Sidebar. I recommend people go back and look at the YouTube Democracy Now! Debate with Finkelstein and Dershowitz. Dershowitz is there to try to just do it. He keeps saying, let's just have a debate about the policy. All Finkelstein, he put the Fink in Finkelstein, does is attack and demean Dershowitz after saying he would never do that because he's a bad faith actor. All these people are bad faith actors. Why is it all the people on the Palestinian side almost all obsessively talk about Israel? They never talk about what's the solution. Even Finkelstein has admitted, actually, Dershowitz's solution is probably the correct solution. But he says, don't worry, Palestinians, later on, you can go and kill them and take them out.
Hold on.
This is a guy who cheered October 7th. That's who Norman Finkelstein is. He cheered October 7th. He has defended rape. He has defended terrorism. He's defended murder. He's defended mass murder. And people are saying, oh, but he's against genocide. No, the only genocidal side in the Palestinian debate are the Palestinians. That's the genocidal side, has been for more than a century. But so that was a little bit fun, but we mentioned the book there. It was mostly a conversation about other topics, Spain, Catalonia, Argentina, Malay, what's it like to have an Austrian economics oriented libertarian as president of a major country? I mean, that's a fascinating component. What's happening in Ukraine? Great preview by the Duran about where they think Ukraine is going over the next year. The really good explanation there. What's happening in China? What's happening in the U.S.? And most of the topics were, of course, all the crazy lawfare here in the States, which continues unabated for one more week.
Well, now I'm too curious. Do you remember what Dershowitz's proposed solution was that Finkelstein?
He supported the two-state solution. Always has. Dershowitz has been he was part of, like me in the 90s, the peace-oriented side of the Israeli debate. And then what happened was Yasser Arafat said, shove off. And it wasn't because Yasser Arafat was being a bad guy. It was because he didn't want to get killed. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't want to end up like Sadat. He goes, no, I can't actually give you a two-state solution. I'll give you a two-state solution. You let us come back and be a majority of Israel.
Well, it was a two-state solution with the right of return of, I think it was, 5 million Palestinians,
yeah, exactly,
or 4.5 million?
Which is the same as saying there is none. That's to get rid of Israel. That's why their favorite chant is from the river to the sea. So Palestinians have rejected every single two-state solution ever since. And Finkelstein even recognizes it's the only actual solution. But his way of trying to sell it to the Arab world, Hezbollah, who he's been a big fan of, Hamas, who he's been a supporter of. Go back and read some of the gibberish he wrote in the 90s about how, their women are out in bikinis on the beach here in Gaza and a bunch of other nonsense that he would just spew. The guy's he's not even a real scholar. I mean, testified for Holocaust deniers. Man, that's who Finkelstein is. And people take him seriously because he is it because they like his position on Israel? Is that really why people like him? Or is it because they're sincerely impressed by his intellect? I don't think so.
It's always fun to find the Jew who is rabidly anti-Israel with no.
And that reflects an old. That goes back to the anti-Zionists. I mean, the biggest anti-Zionists in the late 19th century were Jews, the Jewish left, particularly the commie left. The Jewish commie left was very anti-Zionist. That's why people don't understand why Finkelstein is anti-woke. Old school communists are anti-woke because they don't like anything that interferes with the class struggle or whatever the struggle is. In his case, the class struggle is the oppressed Palestinians against the oppressor imperialist Israelis. That's that old sort of divide. But it reflects an old but the old Jewish left was the most anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli group. Well, they still are. Chomsky, Finkelstein, all these kind of guys.
I just still can't. People get called Zionists online, and then I ask for the definition of Zionist. It's sort of like the definition of woke. There are so many varying definitions. I mean, there are some definitions of Zionism that, I would agree are offensive. Then there's others which, if it just means
a Jewish state, historically just meant a Jewish state. That's all it historically meant. And all these other things have been added onto it over time. Just meant a Jewish state. They want it. And the other thing is I get a kick out of conservatives opposing, and I get a real kick out of Arabs and Muslims, opposing. You shouldn't be able to have land by conquest, even if it happened a century ago. Did Islam just magically grassroots originate all the places it exists today? Or did it come by, hold on a second, conquest? There's not a part of the world that isn't by conquest. People are making some of the most preposterous arguments, the legally, policy-wise, everything else, because they hate Israel. You want to hate Israel, go at it. But don't pretend it's based on sound geopolitical realism. You just hate Israel for whatever reason.
Well, that wasn't on the menu. Robert, hold on. Was there stuff? Okay, what is on the menu for tonight? Because we might have to add one.
Well, we got a little bit tied into all of this, which is the way the Israeli debate is popping up legally in America is what's happening on college campuses. Professors get on both sides getting fired or suspended, or not fired or suspended, as the case may be. Student protest, when do they go too far? Student groups, when do they go too far? What does a private campus have to do versus a public campus or other places? There's people, there's bus drivers that are, refuse to drive people to certain protests because they didn't like what the protest was. In this case, they didn't like pro-Israeli protest. And so in certain sectors, you have all that going on, and it gets into free speech on college campuses, free speech as it relates to material terrorism, because Hamas is a terrorist organization.
I have to stop you here, Roger. I'm going to bring up some dumbass's comment. It says, LOL, greedy Jew could even take out the midstream commercials. What I love, I say it might be a joke, it might be just like a tongue-in-cheek. What I love is when anybody says greedy Jew for running an ad. The flip side to that is spoiled and entitled consumer that wants 2 hours of free content and doesn't want to have to sit through a 30-second ad. Yeah, and I'm the greedy one. But no, YouTube will run the ads, and if you don't like it, I guess.
Yeah, and hopefully Rumble will be sometime soon too, because that will be good. And then if you want it, ad free, go to locals.
I'm the greedy Jew for just wanting to earn and be successful at what I do, and you're not an entitled punk for saying give it to me for free, and I don't even want to have to sit through a free ad. My goodness, then get off YouTube. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. It's where free speech intersects with college campuses, where free speech intersects with material terrorism. That's where this is playing out in the American political legal space. Then we got NYU students filing harassment suits. Where's the line, basically? What is the obligation? And some of the political backstory, where the real secret lobby is. Is the secret lobby the Jewish secret lobby, or is it somebody else? Then we got Elon Musk fighting back, suing Media Matters, connected to another anti-Israeli Jewish guy, George Soros.
Speaking of Jews.
And then you got Trump continuing to fight for dismissal and continuing to file robust briefs in the D.C. case. Speaking of fighting back, Truth is fighting back. Sued almost all the major media, Democratic-leaning, liberal-leaning media organizations this past week for its various lies and libels about the success of Devin Nunes and the folks over at Truth, who we met at the premiere of Dinesh D'Souza's Police State film that we recommend, that's available on Rumble, as is Plot Against the President, now available on Rumble, because Amazon Prime summarily canceled it. Amanda Milius's great film from several years ago that previewed everything we now know about Russiagate. Amazon apparently was so offended by how successful it was that it eliminated it from Amazon Prime. So even if you paid for it, you cannot now watch it, which I think is grounds to sue Amazon Prime, which will be a separate matter. But also available on Rumble are those other items, including Police State. But Truth Fight Bot, looks to me like an open and shut case, frankly. Supreme Court, the administrative case, the case about the administrative state, probably more important than Chevron deference doctrine, is up at the Supreme Court. It's about a case we previously discussed, the administrative law judge power in the SEC context. But that issue has legal implications around the entire administrative state. And if the Supreme Court makes the right ruling, they could permanently gut the administrative state. They also have a big takings case that members of our board have been asking us to discuss. They haven't yet decided whether to take it. I hope they do, because it tries to gut takings law in America.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. When people understand the fact pattern, it's ridiculous.
Completely. Speaking of ridiculous, the bogus standing doctrine. was misused and abused again, this time by New York courts to excuse that judge's quarantine and isolation powers being way past what they should be. We'll have an update on Owen Shroyer. We got America First Legal Group. Stephen Miller continues to bring some of the best lawsuits of any organization in the country, this time suing Mesa County schools for improperly, secretly changing the gender of elementary school kids without their parents knowing about it, and junior high school kids. And then we got a big First Amendment win against the misapplication of terrorism in the COVID vaccine posting, COVID lockdown context, posting on Facebook. We got a couple of fun cases. We got, Frontier baggage fees turns out to be bogus half the time. Fortnite fees. Fortnite admitting they've been charging bogus fees, especially if they could hook your kids on the app. Economic loss doctrine properly restricted in Tennessee. Coach Kiffin at Ole Miss sued for a range of arguably bad behavior. And an update on Owen Shroyer.
All right. Now, some people think my mic.
Oh, and Pfizer sues Poland. There might be a more robust defense than Poland even knows about. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to hold on. I'm not going to touch my mic. I'm just going to bring it closer to my face. Robert, can we just add one off the bat? The Georgia decision from Judge
the
Totenberg?
Georgia Dominion case.
So we're just going to add that off the bat. Then we'll head over to Rumble. People are tweeting out. I deleted a tweet because it could be misinterpreted. It could be misinterpreted in terms of being more optimistic than it actually is, but people were tweeting that Totenberg issued a ruling unfavorable to the Dominion votings in Georgia, where I can see how people can interpret the ruling that way because there's some favorable comments made there about the known security risks of electronic voting machines. But Totenberg has not issued any ruling on the merits. It's a 135-page ruling in response to a motion to dismiss, I think, where she's saying, no, it's going to proceed to trial. We're scheduling the trial for January. But bottom line, the defendants have raised no, or what did they say? They've raised no arguments to counter the known security risks that experts have alluded to. So we're going to have a trial. It will not be a jury trial. It will be a bench trial in January. Is there anything more to that decision from Totenberg than that?
The biggest thing that people are missing that everybody's quoting that case is that suit was brought by Democrats. Totenberg is a very liberal Democratic judge related to the NPR's Totenberg. And this goes from the 2018 election in which Democrats claimed Republicans stole it through machines. So the context is what all the people talking about this, referencing this, are stripping the context out of it because it guts or counters. Why are the Democrats suing? Why are they suing over Republican-won elections? Why is a Democratic judge issuing this ruling? And if Democrats are using Dominion to steal elections, they have a mighty weird way of showing it by trying to get rid of Dominion in Georgia. Now, I agree with the court's conclusions about all the problems with having too much machine involvement in elections. So I'm all for the machines getting thrown out and them having to go to paper ballots. It's where there used to be unity on this, on the election side of the aisle for those of us both on the left and right. Bobby Kennedy was one of the biggest critics of machines being involved in elections going back to 2004. He said that the machines caused the election issues and raised fraud arguments in the 2004 presidential election in Ohio. But what happened is Trump took over the issue in 2020. And so all of a sudden, most of the Democratic left suddenly decided they loved machines, but not all of them. The old school election people on the election front, going back several decades, have long opposed any machines. They prefer paper ballots, which should tell you how Democrats took 2020. It probably wasn't the machines if they're trying to get rid of the machines. But I'm all for the case going forward and forcing paper ballots back in control of the system, which would also have chain of custody issues and other issues. The big question was whether or not a Democratic judge, after Dominion became such a Republican issue after 2020, would stick with her original position, because she had this position early on. By the way, this was the case that was used in part to get all the mass mail-in balloting, by the way. I mean, so there were aspects of this case that were not done for the most positive purposes, in my view. But in terms of where it stands now, it's a suit that will show the deep ongoing issues with having machines, period, Dominion or otherwise, And it shows how insane it was that Fox wrote that big check to Dominion. Anybody involved in this space knew about this case. This was the main case against electronic voting machines in the United States for the past half decade. It came after the 2018 gubernatorial election in Georgia by the guy who lost the lieutenant governor's race, brought the suit, the Democrat, and the claiming that there was an unexplained drop off in a range of Democratic precincts. Now that might have had something to do with Stacey Abrams getting some extra ballots in just for her, and that lieutenant governor not giving the cash to her organization to make sure they were added to the ballot. But they blame the machines, and but the machine. It is a good case for exposing the problem with machines, no question about that. And I support the court's conclusions to date.
All right, and what was I about to say? We're going to head over to Rumble right now, so everybody get your butts over there. But before we do, Robert, you mentioned RFK. I almost forgot to mention this, and I'll mention it before we leave. Tomorrow, Kyle Kemper is going to be coming on at noon. And for those of you who don't know who Kyle Kemper is, because I didn't associate it because their last names are not the same, it's Justin Trudeau's brother. And Justin Trudeau's brother, Kyle Kemper, is working on the Bobby Kennedy's campaign as well. I just saw a message in that inbox that Twitter has enabled that comes from people you're not following, and every now and again I go check it, and 99 out of 100 are not necessarily messages that you reply to. And I see this guy. He said it was from September. It's like, oh my goodness, I missed this. He's coming on at noon. It's not going to be all about Canadian politics, but there's going to be a lot about it. And I verified with him. He's not going to have a problem with me saying that I absolutely hate Justin Trudeau. But noon tomorrow.
Are you going to ask him if Justin is his real brother?
I cannot divulge that at this point in time, Robert. Yes. No. I'm going to ask all the questions.
But
everybody.
I guess you could ask it the nice way. What do you think about all this talk that it's amazing how much Trudeau looks like Fidel Castro? Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, good. Oh, I should not read the negative. This is why Viva is a grifter. He doesn't call Barnes out for anything. Oh God, you know what? I've given some trolls too much attention. Noon tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic, and it's not only going to be about Canada. It's going to be about RFK's campaign as well. Okay, so good. We've lost 200 people on YouTube. That's the way it should be. Now let's lose all of them. Come on over to Rumble. Oh no. Sorry, Robert, one last one before we go. Let me just read these super chats before. So I was charged with assault once, then I beat it from forced name change. I get the joke. Ibogaine is a dissociative psychedelic. I know Rogan talks about it all the time as a method to treat other forms of addiction and problems. Illegal. Barnes, river to the sea, can't stop from Euphrates to the Nile. That is okay. Then we got Cars and Depths. The deep state really doesn't want Chevron overturned. From Cars and Depths. Hugh Thomas says, Robert, buying you a copy of, quote, Trust Your Atoms, end quote, Amazon. The most innovative theory of liberty since Locke. You won't believe it. Screen grabbed. And I'm not your buddy guy. Last one, then we're moving over. It doesn't amaze me. Argentina can count how many millions of paper ballots the same night, yet America and certain states can't do the same. Yeah, no, makes sense. Makes sense when it has to make sense. Ending on YouTube in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come over to Rumble. It's in the pinned comment. Booyaka, Shah.